Hello and welcome. This is the Commander speaking, and in this video I want to go over the basics of purple base defense, specifically on coastal base Morton here as it exists in classic vanilla conflict escalation. So the first thing you'll notice is that the capture point, the command tent, is in the town square instead of down in the harbor, and there's two other capture points you have to capture before you can begin capture progress and stop respawns. And in this situation, the enemy is mostly to our east and potentially threatening us as they move in when they capture Bonfire here to the north. And so that is where the majority of the defensive structures will be oriented in my layout here that I'm going to jump to momentarily. So here's an overhead view. Can't really get much from this. Doesn't look like much, but this is 100% of what's available to be built on the base. So now I'm going to take you on a counterclockwise tour of the perimeter from the defense points I made. As you can see, this bunker is designed to protect this sight line, which is the portion of the beach that is indefilade from all the others. This is the linchpin. This is the right hoplite of a hoplite formation, if you know anything about that. This is the section that we want to put against the ocean because they can't flank us from the ocean. And that's the advantage of most of these military bases, with the exception of Levy and I think Montonac. I don't know if it's a military base. It's not a military base at Montonac, but you see my point. Is that you only have to defend 180, not 360. Bases like Cav Hill have elevation, but they have to have a 360 defense. And that's why it's so heavily fortified in headquarters conflict when it's a purple base. Here you also see I have some Dragon's Teeth with one that's got sandbags so you can shoot back from. And it's also got the razor wire built in, and that is to deny the enemy entry to gate crash through that opening. And I've got this bunker here instead of a regular bunker because I want to have some elevation that this bunker can look down onto the coast there. But you can see I've got more Dragon Teeth on the left there. That's to prevent more gate crashing. And to explain what gate crashing is, gate crashing is my word for when you fill up a vehicle full of guys, smash through the perimeter into the enemy's interior, and where they don't have as many guys, and you have time to dismount and then fight in the capture zone, so that you're already capping, so that when you turn around and engage the guys who retreat from the perimeter, they can't respawn because you're capping the base. Probably won't work as well in conflict escalation on the purple bases because you have to capture the two control nodes before you can capture the command tent area and block respawns, but you know, it's still something to defend against. It's something that could be a knockout punch for when they've got you pinned on the ropes with the two capture points. But that's what the Dragon's Teeth are for there. And it's simple, you know, barbed wire area denial. Also, I left the fence here so that, you know, you have some ability to traverse between the bunkers without necessarily being seen right away. Got some sandbags here covering the arsenal. I built this arsenal for this sector so they don't have to run all the way back to the town square to rearm. And over here, I have the next interlocking point. Oh, hang on. Oh, I've got a machine gun nest over there as well. Heavy machine gun with AP rounds and all that. Another bunker here. As you can see, there's its sight line. But the most important thing to point out right now is that I've also gone out from each of these bunkers and cleared the sight line of foliage. There's 300 meters in every direction, just about, or 100, 200 meters before you reach a tree line or something that is going to obscure the enemy from your vision and ability to shoot and target them. And notice how, looking to the right, the field of fire available to this bunker intersects with those of the other bunkers. That is the most important point of establishing these structures at these specific spots, and you'll see that more as I go from bunker to bunker. So as you can see, more Dragon's Teeth and a bunker there. Heavy machine gun nest. This is so we can get in and out, but you know, if they try and come down the road and gate crash us, we've got the MG here to stop them. As well as it can immediately engage any threatening vehicles that might crest the hill, whether it's an LAV or a Humvee. You know, this one's an NSV, but you know, loading the 50 with the AP incendiary rounds is also clutch in this. I've also got this bunker here to protect from flanking fire on the MG nest, which is kind of vulnerable too. And you can cover obviously all that you can see here, to the right, what's dead ahead, and to the left, where those buildings have all been demoed to clear the sight lines for this. Now, if the buildings were intact, I would have a different setup, but this is just to illustrate the point of a very nice, tight, clear defense. Even with them collapsed, though, they provide broken cover that you can, you know, run from piece to piece of as you're moving from your respawn to your original defensive position in the bunker. Because even if you get killed out of that bunker, the advantage of having these long sight lines is that you should be able to run the 50 meters, or 20 meters in this case, from your respawn to your defensive position before the enemy can cross the 200, 100, or 300 meters that it takes to get through this open area. I also built some sandbags here so you have some cover as you spawn and load in the relay tower there, and it allows you to get some traverse where you're in cover between structures. This one I built instead of the standard because I wanted elevation over the broken cover next to it, so that if the enemy does manage to get cover on the backside of some of these destroyed structures, you've got some elevation to fire your rifle and GL down onto them, that kind of thing. You'll also note that I did not put sandbags at the terminal there for the light vehicle depot because I'm not building sandbags to protect random people from random snipers in random encounters. These structures are exclusively used for full-on attack and defense, like this base is being assaulted. If I had sandbags covering that terminal that we won't be using in an actual attack to protect one guy from a sniper, then I wouldn't have it at the other arsenals on the other side of the base where our guys can be protected while they rearm during an attack. And here you can see I've used this nice long hallway that goes right through the building here to create a covered point of travel between the bunkers. You know, as much as possible, we want to be able to rotate our guys. You know, let's say we don't have enough guys to cover all the bunkers. Well, if we know we're getting attacked over here, we want covered ways for us to rotate around the perimeter to defend. And, once again, intersecting fields of fire. In addition to the intersecting fields of fire, we have indirect means of fire in the mortar pit here, which, for most of the perimeter on this northern side, I can actually see my rounds landing from the pit here and take cover between lobs. Because if they're suppressing me, they're not suppressing one of these MG bunkers, which means that MG bunker can stand up and suppress them, preventing the attack from progressing forward. And especially at night, more useful than the HE are these illumination rounds. Make it daytime for you and not for them. You know, with these road flares, they often don't quite go far enough into the small arms range you're trying to engage. Same goes for the GL launchers. They don't quite reach out there far enough to what you want to illuminate without the wind blowing it back onto you even sometimes and you being illuminated. But with the illumination rounds, you can send them out as far as you need to illuminate whatever targets you want, and most importantly, to blind those targets, because if they're illuminated, they can't be using their gamma filter kind of crap, which is the one thing that this conflict escalation doesn't fix. Nighttime is still Reforger nighttime. As far as I know, there's no night vision on the Warpig server. I don't know about some of these other servers that'll be using conflict escalation, but you know, blinding the enemy with illumination, forcing them to be on even terms with you, is another great use for this indirect fire with the mortar pit. And I'd also like to point out, this is the true use for bell towers in churches. Look how much I can see and how easily and ping with my binos. It's not for me shooting and picking off individual targets. My job is to coordinate and be the eyes for everyone down here, so that they have to suppress this church tower now just as much as each of those bunkers, because I can see all the way out. I can see the entire field of fire, and I can see over the obstructions that this sandbag bunker and that sandbag bunker on the opposite side of those buildings can't quite see. So then I can coordinate our indirect fire off the mortar onto what the bunkers can't see. Same thing in this direction. And same thing in this direction. That's what these bell towers are for. And it's why this side's blocked off, because you can't see back that way. I can see down the street. But because everyone in the area can see those pings, now I don't have to worry about, well, it's 230 for me on my compass, but what is it for the mortar man? Maybe it's 400 for him, you know. We're in different positions. If I just keep hitting that ping, he can keep seeing that ping, and he's just got to turn the mortar towards that ping and then get the range right. Left and right doesn't matter so much when we all share a ping ability, because we can't all have the language skills to both speak and describe and then understand what's being described to us. That's asking too much of everybody. But a ping tells everyone, Now, with that being said, I've transitioned to the role here of, let's say I'm a squad leader getting ready to assault this base. Look how much we have to overcome to get in now. Assuming that each of those points is manned by at least one guy, I've got to have at least one guy to suppress those targets. Because when you have interlocking fields of fire like this, doesn't matter how many smoke grenades you try and leapfrog forward with, the closer you get to that defensive perimeter, the more smoke grenades you need, because the field of fire in front of you widens such that when you get close to the front line there, that perimeter, the machine gun bunkers to your left and right can shoot down the flanks of your smoke into you where you're exposed. So you can't get close to the perimeter using smoke when you have interlocking fields of fire like that. You can't just have one squad punch through a single hole in it, because every portion of the line supports every other portion of the line. Looking down from the cemetery hill, you can see the same thing. All of those bunkers interlock with each other. Remember, and rewind if you like, to see what you can see from within those bunkers. Because if you can see these bunkers, they can see you. And most importantly, you can choose whether or not to have your full field of vision available, or to restrict it to just what's in front of you. Just back up to the back side of the bunker, and you can focus on just what's in front of you without worrying about flanking fire coming in from, you know, an attacking force trying to do the same thing, to have different portions of their line crisscrossing fire, intersecting to support each other as they try and suppress. A lot of this again, but here we have the same issue again. Let's say I managed to get my squad snuck up to down here. We're getting ready for our attack, and I'm the squad leader, and I'm getting my binos out, and I look down and see, oh man, that bunker can hit me, that bunker can hit me, that bunker can hit me, and that bunker can hit me, and that bunker can hit me, and that bunker can hit me, right? So the entire defensive line can see me up here. So when I get hit with a ping, when one of those guys down there sees me, all of these bunkers will turn and start firing at me. And so will that mortar. Where is it? There's the mortar pit behind the big pillbox tower there. So all along this line of sight that these machine guns can cover are interlocking fields of fire. And that is your wall. Your wall is not to build a big old bunch of sandbag walls that don't shoot back. Sandbags don't shoot back. Men in bunkers shoot back. Because in order to take out that guy in the bunker, I've either got to shoot explosives, a GL, or a rocket right through the window and hit the back wall, and do that multiple times until he's dead. Because if it's an RPG, it'll kill him, but the GL oftentimes won't kill him on the first hit. You got to get 2 in there. That's a pretty good fucking shot from this distance. And that's while he's shooting back at me. So I'd have to have one machine gunner suppressing that bunker, another machine gunner suppress it while he's reloading, a GL to fire in there to try and kill him, and even if I kill him, look, radio tower's right there. That's where he's going to spawn. He's going to spawn right there, run right back at the bunker, and we got to kill him again. Same thing with all these bunkers. This is how you defend a base. You defend with your weapons, not with obstruction. You know, obstructing field, like these walls prevent us seeing out as much as them seeing in. This is not how you defend a base, by building walls. You build bunkers that create fields of fire from which to fight from. Your goal is to fight back effectively, not create obstruction that just closes the distance of the fight and try and build, because you cannot defend a base by building an entire perimeter of dragon's teeth with barbed wire so that no vehicles or infantry can get in, and then you create choke points. You don't have, this is 100% of the build that's available. 100% of the build. And it doesn't look all that built up because it's used sparingly at specific points for specific purposes that each support each other. Look how much area all this can cover, because I've also gone out here and removed a bunch of the foliage that obscures line of sight in all these fields of fire. So it took me about 2 hours to do this. It would take the kinds of people, the kinds of numbers it would take to defend this is about, at minimum I'd say 6 or 7. Ideally 10 to 12. But depending on how many guys you got, you divide those 2 hours, and really it could be shorter. It took me 2 hours. But But you divide this task by by however many people are doing it. So if there's going to be 2 guys in that bunker, they're in charge of that bunker and its field of fire. So you build your bunker, or you figure out what sight line you want, you build your bunker, and then you clear all the obstruction you can going out from the bunker, so that your ability to fire accurately, unobstructed, towards the enemy goes outwards from that bunker. And everyone at each bunker that they're going to be assigned to does that same task. And divided between, let's say, the 12 people, if you divide 2 hours by 12, you basically get 10 or 15 minutes it takes to do this. So let's say you've got your 10 or 12 guys, and they fortify this position because what you would, in the strategic sense, if your 2 squads or squad was tasked with defending Texas, the strategic decision that would be made there is other teams are going to go out and be on offense. Right? We're going to buy you time. We're going to buy you those 15 minutes you need, because those 15 minutes we buy for you are going to purchase for us hours where they can go wherever they need to on the map, because they can, even if they take Bonfire here, even if they take Morton, this space has become so hard that the 10 or 12 guys defending it can defend against all 60 of their team if they showed up, because I've done the math, and it's basically a 4-to-1 ratio you can expect on a well-fortified base like this. Because if there's 12 guys here, times 4, there's your 64 players on the team. I think that's 24 and 24, 48. No, so anyway, it's whatever the numbers are, but 4-to-1 is what you can expect. You could hold out 6 to 7 to 1, but that's what you're going for here. So because you've created a defensible front line here, that frees up 45 or so other guys on your team to go fuck around and do everything else that needs to be done on the map. But obviously, you know, if you've got 12 guys defending here and you're getting signal cut off here, then that means the 45 guys on the rest of your team aren't doing their jobs. If you sit here for 20 minutes with your 12 guys and nothing happens, then you reduce that to 4 guys. You reduce that down to a skeleton crew and make this your base from which you start attacking from. So what you would have is 4 guys stay, 8 guys go attack. And every time you die, it's your turn to defend. Alright, so when you die, you respawn here, you pick a bunker, and you wait. And when someone else dies, they come to your bunker and relieve you. But like I talked about in the beginning of this, which you couldn't hear, do not abandon your post until properly relieved. You couldn't hear me because my mic was muted this whole time, so I'm going to have to say it all again in the editing. But, you know, just like in the Felixander convoy commander system, or the companion convoy system, where whoever's driving is in rotation, right? So the guys driving back and forth with the vehicles picking up our guys. The guys who are here on defense are also on rotation, right? So that no one person gets stuck doing fucking nothing. But how am I going to get down there without getting shot, right? Because I've also cleared... Because the developers planned all this, right? They put hedgerows in specific places that I've cleared. These little trees here used to also have bushes. This used to be where, okay, we would smoke this gap, cross here, still concealed here. They don't know where in these hedges they are. They're just guessing. And we run all the way down until... Now we're in defilade. Now we're concealed. Now the only thing that can see me is that bunker and that bunker just barely. So now, by crossing from there to here, we found an avenue of approach. And as the further we get down towards the coast here on this side, see? These buildings obscuring. There's cover here. So even though I've got sandbags over there and bunkers and all this fortification, because the sight line isn't clear, we can run right up to it. And look how easy it would be to pop up on this shit right here and start shooting GLs, right? That's less than 100 meters. We can engage with small arms and pick the guys off the machine gun nest there. Or I could get even closer and say I've got an RPG or a grenade launcher. I can shoot that, boom, right into the bunker right there. Everybody in it's dead. And while they're dead, they've got to respawn back over there and run over here. Well, that's the same distance it is for me. You know, same thing. I could sit right here, and suppress or fire rockets and GLs into those sandbags quick as you please. Because at this range, from the time I kill them to the time I run up to their same bunker, if I was smarter and didn't run through that bush, is about the same amount of time. So now I can kill them and then capture this bunker. And now when the respawners come, I'm fighting them in this corner, that doorway, this corner and this doorway, right? And so are all the guys behind me coming in. So if I was going to attack this position, I wouldn't choose any of these places where it would be difficult. I would come in from here to do it where it's easy as possible. And like I said before, but I didn't record it because my mic was muted, you want to leave yourself a back door like this, right? Because if they capture Bonfire Hill and come down through here, this is their best approach. And even then, it's not perfect. But that's basically, we're going to be trading even here. Because even though we're on even footing, engaging these bunkers and fighting from, like, using what I just talked about there, when I trade, when the next guy comes through that doorway, and I shoot him and he shoots me, and we trade, I have to respawn all the way at Bonfire Hill. But he respawns right here at Morton again, and as soon as he does, he runs right back into this bunker, and I have to start that process all over again. So that's defense. So now I'd like to talk about what roles would be ideal for the bunkers. Well, I think the ideal role would be light machine gunner, GL. That'd be their combo. That way you've got both things. You've got suppression and indirect fire. USGLs are accurate or available up to 250 meters. That's well within our perimeter. But, you know, you can engage with small arms up to 300 to 400 pretty accurate. That's what most people are engaging at. That's what the range of those trees are from this bell tower. From there down on the bunkers, I think it's 300. So what you want is the LMG firing, suppressing, giving casualties, keeping fire superiority over the enemy, while when he goes to reload, then the 30-round mag is sufficient to continue suppressing those guys. And basically while the MG's firing, the grenade launcher should be firing. While the MG's reloading, the rifle should be firing. And that's the combo you want, 2 guys per bunker. Up here in the tower, obviously you want the recon guys with their M21s with scopes and binos, so they can ping targets for the mortar man. Everyone's available to ping, though. If you see a target and you need support firing on it, ping it. On PC, it's control and whatever the point button is, but get that keybound for yourself on your console. Figure it out, because that's a crucial skill for this kind of situation. You won't be a proper companion in conflict escalation if you can't even ping. And now I'd like to talk about the missing ingredient in all this, which is anti-air cover. How do we protect ourselves from MI8 strafing us? Well, this LAV is the only feasible solution to that I've ever really found. MG nests are good, but you're relying on the MI8 to fly low and in that field of fire. There's nothing stopping the LAV from gaining extreme altitude and engaging us in dives. And that is what good MI8 pilots do. They target specific parts of the base where they know players are going to be. They don't have to visually confirm their kills, especially on a kill feed server, which it remains to be seen if this will be in time. Right now it's not. But the only defense against MI8s is LAVs. And in a base like this, where we have the perimeter held, we don't need the LAV over here within, well within RPG range, plinking away at infantry targets. This is not where we want the LAV to be. And even if it is here, we want it to be very, very mobile and here very, very temporarily. We want this to be like a proper anti-aircraft gun with 360 rotation. The Humvees are not good. They don't cut the mustard because they do not have the gun elevation to target diving MI8s. Also, you want at least 2 people in this thing, 1 to drive, 1 to gun, that both are competent, because you need to be able to relocate. When I'm right here, RPGs can engage me from that hill, but not from that hill, right? So if depending on where we're taking contact, I want to position this thing out of range or in cover from RPGs, but, for example, still able to cover the air, which would be down here, right? Down here, nothing that the enemy infantry can throw at me can hit me, but I can hit every single part of the air that MI8 can come from. Look at the coverage of this gun. Look how high it can point upwards. Look what it can turn. There's a cone of fire available here that MI8 cannot escape from. And that is your sole duty. And you cannot abandon your post until properly relieved, just like every other post. Because what you can't see right now is being covered by the defensive perimeter. You don't need to worry about those ground targets. You need to be protecting us from the airborne threats. But basically, every time you kill an MI8 with the LAV, you need to be relocating. Even if it's only 20 meters, you need to be changing position. Because when they're doing those high altitude attacks, you know, if he's close enough that you can both see each other clearly and he's targeting you, then you just need to be better at gunning. You should, if they're close enough that small arms is engaging and hitting them, you should be shooting them down just like that. But if they're doing these high altitude long range dives, they're not able to see what they're shooting. They're guessing where they think something valuable is, like infantry or LAVs, and engaging that spot. So if you engage an MI8 and you shoot it down and you hear him coming again, he's thinking that you are where your tracers on your LAV last came from. And that's where he's going to target. Because it's going to be very hard for him to see you until he gets close enough that you should already be shooting him down. Because you have the advantage of hearing his audio presence, because obviously when you stop, you're going to cut the engine. And you should be able to hear that MI8 coming. And even if you miss him on the first pass, you're going to see him on that first pass and see where the rockets came from. And you're going to be able to predict his trajectory and target him accordingly. But your job is to relocate in random positions throughout this little fishbowl here where the RPGs can't hit you and keep that MI8 off of us. In fact, I think I hear one now. I did hear one now. Well, that's a perfect example. The last thing I'll say to conclude this video is obviously no plan is perfect. Any portion of this can be picked apart and targeted by a dedicated squad and team, and that's what we really need to learn when we're actually attacking places. You don't attack things by just charging forward and shooting in waves. In order to attack a properly defended base, you have to properly attack it. So for example, I would send in an infiltration team with AT to slip in from an extremely difficult insertion. I would drop them somewhere back here where they won't be detected, have them come in on foot, have them slip in through here to the rear, and take out the LAV. But keeping comms available, right? So that once that LAV's down, they can call that on the radio, and they're in position. They're already in the base stirring up trouble. That's when you signal, okay, MI8, go. Now the MI8 comes in and starts hitting the base. Once the MI8's hitting the base, that's when you pick a particular direction that you've determined is the most vulnerable to attack. That would be the northwest or the western side. You would make your attack from Bonfire Hill down the MSR and come in and try and assault the base, punching through to N, then D, or is that O? It's O, and capturing the command point on Texas by starting the cap, by blitzing enough guys through that you both outnumber and outgun these defenders that are on the perimeter here, because ideally you'd want to take them by surprise. So nothing's perfect, but you would have to come up with a plan like that. You can't just fucking charge in 1Z, 2Z, 3Zs like I see everyone always doing and expect to win against this kind of a position and this kind of a defense. But the point is that whatever plan they come up with, this isn't a perfect defense, but the defensive pattern, the formation we're trying to hold, is what is going to protect us. And our goal isn't just to shoot the enemy. It's not just to defend the point. It's to maintain the pattern we've created. That pattern is what is going to protect us. Because each point in that pattern supports the others. Whether it's the marksman in the tower observing, the indirect fire from the mortars, the interlocking fields of fire from the bunkers, the guys running back and forth with ammo, the GLs shooting flares and indirect fire onto what the MGs are suppressing with their MGs. The LAV keeping the sky clear. And even the commander saying, we're getting hit really hard on the southeastern section. Now you'll understand when you hear in movies, we've got enemies in the wire. Enemies in the wire means if we had a ring of barbed wire here, they've penetrated that, but enemies breaking the perimeter means that those of us who aren't currently engaged on the perimeter needs to fall back to the interior and engage those guys that have broken through the gap, the breach, in CQB. Even in Shakespeare, I think it's Henry V at the Battle of Agincourt, the most famous phrase is, once more into the breach. And that is because they have a front line, but they've also got guys in reserve whose job is to smash into that breach and plug it up again so that the whole front line doesn't break. Because you can't prevent the whole front line to never get penetrated by anything when you've got tons of steel and horse charging into the line. You know, that guy the knight who charged through bravely might die, but he's going to bust through that line so that his friends can get through. It's kind of like gate crashing with a vehicle and a fuel truck, you know. That's kind of the idea between IED attacks. The IED comes in, blows a hole in the defenses, and then the insurgent fighters that are trying to rush in behind and have a CQB fight in here, rather than just shooting back and forth at the defenses, where they were always going to lose that fight. To use the analogy of football, it's just like when you have a run play, the job of the offensive players is to create a hole in the offensive line, just tries to create a hole in the defensive line, and then you've got a linebacker whose job is to plug that hole. That's what the reaction force inside here, if we had one of those, would be. Or pulling it off, you know, pulling a guard, same principle. You know, you're pulling someone off the defensive line to create another, or plug a hole that's been created by a movement. You know, it's same principles. It's all the same stuff. And in Arma, these capture points, these are like field goal range. You know, you're in the red zone. But here, this is the touchdown zone. And that should be your goal when you're attacking. Keep that in mind. Just like when you're defending, your goal is not to run out here and try and confirm your kill once you've shot one, or get drug off, you get bored, and you're wandering around out here, so that if you're up here and you have to run all this way because one guy slipped through right here and started the cap, obviously it takes 2 in conflict escalation, and 4 in total on a purple base like this. But let's say those 4 guys slipped in through here while you're out here dicking around looking at, oh, I assume you get his radio, and you're not at your post where you should be, then you're just letting them score touchdowns. But to be very clear, this is the level of play I expect the most elite companions to get to with me. This is the kind of Arma that people want to see. Not everyone can do this, but some people can, and everyone can watch it and benefit from the fun and the learning of it. And we have yet to see it actually done in Reforger, and that is my goal before Reforger ends and Arma 4 comes out, is we at least get to see it once. Everyone should be at least able to watch proper Reforger actually happen on YouTube or TikTok, even if they couldn't personally participate in it themselves, so that we can end Reforger and say, yes, it wasn't just a beta, it was a real experience that we shared together, and we all really learned something from it. And we're going to carry that into Arma 4, and ideally, the rest of our lives. Because the same principles like patience, persistence, the virtues that make good Reforger possible, are the same virtues and ideals that make life possible. And that's why I get so frustrated, is because, holy shit, when I see people fucking up in Reforger, I know they're fuck-ups in real life. Because I'm not some nobody who has come to Reforger because I've got nothing else to do. I'm taking real things from my real life and bringing it to you in Reforger. Anyway, this has been the Commander speaking. Over and out.